Good evening. The San Dimas City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 11th will come to order. Please rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will be pulling and moving the discussion of the Golden State Water rates to the meeting of June 25th. Golden State Water will be making a presentation about the project proposed through the rate increase, and staff will be updating the agenda item and reflect the updated rate numbers. We'll move into oral communications.
Mr. Mayor, we need to do roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Bertakos.
Here.
Councilmember Weber.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Viana.
Present.
Mayor Bedar.
Present.
The record will reflect that council does have a council with Councilmember Nakano absent.
Thank you. Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual agenda item except for the public hearing items. Comments on public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussions on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to staff or set for discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to speaking once for up to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
Margie Green with the San Dimas Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilman. I'm sure you all are aware of this, but I want to be sure that everybody out there that's watching TV, anybody that's interested knows that we have the State of the City coming up. Our mayor is going to be speaking to us on updates on the city and what's going on, and this will be Thursday, June 27th. The doors will open at 7:30 in the morning. We'll have light refreshments, and then we'll start listening to Emmett give us a wonderful talk and about the state of the city at 8:30. So everybody is invited. It's going to be over at the senior building at right across from City Hall. So please come to that. It would be nice to have a good group there, and we can cheer Emmett on with his report. We can find out the good, the bad, and the ugly about what's going on in town, and we're so proud of the city and what's going. So please come to that. It is put on by the City of San Dimas and the Chamber of Commerce. So join us on the 27th from 7:30 to 8:30 is going to be social time. 8:30, Emmett's going to start talking, and we'll be listening to the mayor give the report. I'm sure our city manager, Chris Constantine, is going to have something to say. Maybe some of the other city councilmen will speak up too. But it should be a fun, interesting time, at least fun for the rest of us, Emmett. And I'm sure our mayor's going to have a good time doing that too. Thank you. See you on the 27th.
Thank you, Margie.
Mayor, those are all the speaker cards that were turned in.
Anyone wishing to speak to the council at this time? Maddie?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. As you may know, I'm moving to North Carolina. I gave notice of intent to sell pursuant to California Civil Code Section 79859. The next day, I get this 2-page contract from the managers demanding that I provide them information that the statute does not require. They created the impression that this form is required by law, and it is not. It is something they did on their own. The managers are telling sellers what they have to do to improve their property, or they won't approve the buyer. There's nothing in the law that gives them the authority to do that. They're doing that on their own. DeFalco, the managers are gone. My escrow opened yesterday. There is nobody to meet with the buyers. DeFalco did not provide substitutes. The Davenports are on vacation, so nothing gets done for a week, and then they take 10 days because they're incompetent to check the application. They insist the buyers have to sit with them so they can tell the buyers how to fill it out and make appointments. The escrows, they are not reading the meters. There are still problems with the meters. The read dates on the bill are 2 months earlier than the month of the bill. I presented this to the city in February. No answer from DeFalco or VCS. Apparently, at 87, John DeFalco is having problems. The owner of VCS is a pedophile. He is a registered sex offender. Instead of using the company that Charter Oak used for 20 years, DeFalco got rid of them and hired this company run by a pedophile. He also did not, or just ignored, doing due diligence on the Davenports. They were purportedly fired from their last 2 jobs at mobile home parks. I don't have the details. DeFalco knows them. When escrow closes, the meters are supposed to be read so that the amounts can be apportioned between the buyer and the seller. They don't read them. There's a house that closed a week ago. Buyer still has not gotten the readings, apparently won't get them for some time because the Davenports are gone for a week. So this situation is still ongoing. I brought this to your attention a year ago. Nothing has been done. We still have problems. The drug dealer is still living with his grandparents. No, the managers have not moved to remove him. He is underage. Every day, I watch 4 or 5 drug mules come by on a bicycle. They used to walk. Now they cycle by my house with their backpacks. They go get the drugs, and they leave the park. This is dangerous, particularly for the residents. There's a homeless camp. One point, there's a homeless camp. They're throwing golf balls at the residents as they walk by, trying to hit them in the head in the temple. The managers had 12 golf balls. They thought it was funny. They didn't report it to anyone.
Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you. Oh, and I have documents for you, Debbie. Everything I referenced. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to make a set for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And have fun when you move. Where are you? Out of state? Out of state? Have fun. Take care. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council at this point? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar will be considered to be routine and enacted with one motion, unless a member of the city council requests a separate discussion.
Mr. Mayor, on item number 15, I would just like to make a couple comments when it comes up, and then I will actually recuse myself from that particular vote.
Anyone else wishing to speak to any of the consent decree items?
Mayor, I think this is what the city clerk was going to bring up too. But on item 13, there is an ordinance to be introduced. And so the city clerk should read the title of that ordinance before the consent calendar is adopted.
Ordinance 1308, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Dimas, County of Los Angeles, California, amending the official zoning map to change the zone from single-family agriculture 16,000 SFA-A 16,000 to single-family 7,500 SF 7,500 for the properties located at 327 East Baseline Road and an unaddressed parcel, APNs 8661-017-010 and 011.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item number 15 for separate discussion.
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0 with one abstention. Okay, item 15.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to make a comment regarding this. This is a unique request from myself to the council to request permission to be granted excused absences from city council meetings for the dates outlined: July 9th, July 23rd, August 13th, August 27th, September 10th, and we'll say September 24th, although I suspect I will be back on the 24th meeting. But in the event I'm not, I'll be requesting that too at this time. And for the community as well as the council, I had the unique honor and privilege to be nominated and then selected to attend a national academy that less than 1% of members of law enforcement attend in this nation. And I was accepted into that academy. That academy is in Quantico, Virginia, located there, and that is a rigorous curriculum with a program that will benefit not only the profession for which I work in, but it'll also benefit the community here with the course of study that I will be undergoing. So that is the reason for which I would be missing the meetings, but I do intend to tune in when I can, and if there are any meetings outside of the regular council meetings, perhaps weekend meetings, if those materialized, then we could coordinate accordingly so I could attend those. Unfortunately, I just will be unable to attend our regular council meetings due to the requirements of the academy.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
No questions, but understanding his recusal from the item, I'll move approval of consent calendar item number 15.
I'll second it.
And I, for the record, I do abstain from this vote.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 3 with 1 abstention and 1 absence.
Thank you, council.
We'll move on to other business. Adopt Resolution 2024-46 approving 2024-25 operating and capital improvement budget program budget. Staff?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Administrative Services Director Michael O'Brien, and I'm here tonight requesting adoption of Resolution number 2024-46, approving the fiscal year 2024-25 operating and capital improvement program budget. Additionally, a discussion is necessary to approve or deny funding for the Planning Commissioners and Community Services Director to attend the upcoming Planning Academy, a budget line item that was originally suspended at the last budget study session. I would also like to note for the public that a revised version of Attachment 1 was posted on the city website and distributed to council this morning, as errors were discovered in the original attachment caused by links in Excel documents not updating properly to account for changes that were made prior to finalization. In the future, these issues will hopefully be mitigated as we transition to a digital budget book platform program to come online in the upcoming fiscal year. Ultimately, the effect of the correcting of the error presents a more positive outlook for the city budget, as the original attachment presented an all funds reduction of $13,141,868, as opposed to the new reduction figure of $11,641,868, a positive difference of $1.5 million, which equates to the grant to be received in the Housing Fund 113 where the error took place. The projected deficit for the unassigned general fund balance remains at $1,083,960. This budget includes reductions in services, which include the closing of the student union, cancellation of some special events, designs for proposed future capital projects, new trees, replacement tables for the senior center, some aspects of community engagement, use of certain consultants, as well as additional cuts that were made earlier in the process to align requested budgets with historical performance and to eliminate excessive contingencies that were built in the prior budgets. Future items that may affect the 24-25 budget deficit includes the upcoming proposed fee resolution, for which a public notice has been published, and a revised fee schedule is proposed to be taken to council in August of 2024. To be considered for approval, which would include increases that would help mitigate the budget deficit or to help offset any additional expenses that may be the result of completing labor negotiations and the costs associated with the future approval of finalized agreements with each labor group. Additionally, staff will be taking back the completed budget book at an August council meeting for approval before being posted on the website. The new version of the budget book will be expanded to display program pages for all of our identified programs in order to assist the public by having a more transparent view of the total costs to run the various programs that are provided by the City of San Dimas and how much the programs are being subsidized by taxpayer dollars as opposed to fees or other restricted funds. No changes will take place in the final budget book that would equate to anything other than the $63,763,339 expenditure budget that is proposed to be approved tonight via resolution number 2024-46. Lastly, it is important to note that projected deficits are likely to continue over the next several years unless additional revenue can be generated along with reductions in services. Thankfully, we have enough cash reserves to weather the storm in the short term and to observe how the actual revenues and expenditures compute in the short term. However, over the long term, reserves are likely to dwindle and tough decisions will have to be made to address it. With that said, it's my recommendation for council to consider the funding for the Planning Academy participants and to adopt the resolution 2024-46. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, Mr. Mayor, at the last council meeting, there was a request to consider funding, sending all the planning commissioners, including the department head, to the annual planning commissioner training in Northern California. And so if your desire is to fund that activity, which was going to be suspended, you can make that motion in improving the budget with that funding included, if you so choose.
I'll roll the dice. I will move that we authorize that funding. I think it's valuable, and I've heard some of the discussions later outside of the council meeting from the public regarding this, and let's see what happens.
Do we have a second?
Second.
If I may clarify, so is that moving the resolution, including the funding for that commission?
Well, it sounded like you were only talking about that one thing, so my motion is for that one thing, and then we can do the resolution amended after.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0 with one absence.
With that decision, council, you may approve or adopt the resolution as is, as it includes that amount in there.
Was there an over-under on whether or not that was going to pass?
50-50 as always.
Wow.
All right. Any further, staff? Any more?
We just need a motion on the resolution.
I'll motion the resolution to approve the budget as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0 with one absence. Okay. We'll move on to second hearing. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation from staff is to approve Resolution 2024-43.
I'm sorry, Chris, one moment. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself. Actually, I'm going to abstain from this particular item, giving my my hiring with the LA County Sheriff's Department, and this pertains to a contractual matter engaging their law enforcement services. So just out of cautionary reasons, I'm going to abstain.
All right, staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommended action is to approve Resolution 2024-43, approving the 5-year agreement with the County of Los Angeles for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2029, which is referred to as the Municipal Law Enforcement Services Agreement with the County of Los Angeles and the City of San Dimas, and to authorize the mayor to execute the 5-year agreement on behalf of the city. Every 5 years, the city the contract cities engages with a negotiation with the county to finalize a 5-year agreement referred to as the MLESA, which is the acronym for the Municipal Law Enforcement Services Agreement. That agreement governs the activities, the law enforcement activities of the San Dimas Sheriff's Department, or the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department here in the San Dimas station, as well as all the stations, and establishes the requirements for law enforcement and the services that there are to provide. Annually, we approve a form that's called the 575 form, which is a listing of all the service items or deputies or units that we purchase and the minutes associated with each individual deputy that we purchase that is to be provided to the city of San Dimas. Under the previous agreement, when we purchased, for example, a deputy at, we have a total of 20 deputies, and it's about a little bit over 2.6 million minutes. While we're purchasing 20 deputies, or the services of 20 deputies, what we're really purchasing under the agreement is 2.6 million minutes that may be provided by those 20 deputies or other deputies that are either in the county or on overtime that come into the city and provide service. And the past 5-year agreement required the county to provide somewhere between 98 and 102% of the total minutes for all the deputies, whether it's a motor unit, a special assignment deputy, or a patrol deputy. When we negotiated this time around, there was a small team selected by the Contract Cities Association to represent the 42 contract cities in negotiating that agreement. I was fortunately able to be one of those individuals that worked with that team to negotiate the changes. Those teams were broken up into 2 groups, one dealing with the liability side and one dealing with the operational side, which impacted most of the language in the agreement. I was the team lead for the side that negotiated the changes to the operational side of the agreement. And in regards to those operational changes, the staff report outlines a number of changes that were all positive changes for all the jurisdictions. The one that was very important to me was the first one. I talked about the 2.6 million minutes that we buy and how those are allocated. The new requirement under the agreement would break that big bucket of 2.6 million into smaller buckets so that the motor unit operates with its bucket of minutes by itself. The special assignment team deputies have their own bucket and the patrol deputies have their own bucket, and each of them would have a performance metric of within 98 to 102%. That ensured that you wouldn't cannibalize one type of unit, like the special assignment deputies, which deals with our quality of life and homelessness, to make up for the fact that the patrol deputies were way above 102% under the contract. It makes it a little more challenging for the department to manage its resources, but it's more accountability for the cities to be able to get the services that they need in the contract. A number of other requirements were really internal control issues. When we provide equipment to the department, it's going to be documented in inventory in a more robust manner. When a deputy is suspended or removed, the time period for which we get to retain their vehicle, so that is when we restore that deputy, we don't have to pay again for a new vehicle, has been extended to 24 months. And there's a number of other smaller changes that are in there. On the liability side of the house, you'll see in the staff report it's in very long detail and it's intentional. We have not presented to the council ever before the full scope of the agreement and how liability occurs. And so San Dimas drafted the agreement for which the staff report for which all 42 cities are using as a template for their councils, and they're able to reduce the language that they provide to the council in those staff reports. What you will find in that staff report is also a section talking about the Liability Trust Fund Claims Board. And this goes to how do we deal with claims or lawsuits against deputies. The city entered into an agreement, several agreements that deal with liabilities. We have an indemnity agreement and a special indemnity agreement that currently apply to us, and that indemnity agreement applies not just for law enforcement, it applies for all other services that we partake through the county. And it deals with how do you fund when there's a lawsuit against a deputy who was performing service within the city of San Dimas. So we pay into a fund that is currently 12%, and going forward after July 1 will be 12.5%, into a pool called the Liability Trust Fund. So all 42 cities pay into that. And there is a board that was selected and appointed by the Board of Supervisors, oversees when claims come forth in lawsuits. and the county council believes that a settlement may be the best approach. Those settlements are proposed to that liability trust fund claims board, which is made up of half elected officials and the other half city managers, of which I am one of those. And then that recommendation goes to the Board of Supervisors, and when the supervisors approve that recommendation, that funding is taken out of that liability trust fund, the fund that all the cities were contributing their 12% and that soon to be 12.5% into. We engaged in discussion with the county because of significant issues associated with liability and risk transfer between the county and ourselves. As of right now, any action performed by a deputy that's performing contract city work within the city of San Dimas becomes a liability of the trust fund on behalf of all the contract cities. That may include make a claim of a legal stop, a use of force, a shooting, the whole gamut of services that are provided by the county. And that is treated the same across all the cities in the jurisdiction in the county that provide the service. In the latest actuarial report provided by the Liability Trust Fund, who is serviced by the California JPIA Insurance Authority, which is our insurance authority generally, we're at about 50% funding of the Liability Trust Fund, which is a very precariously low funding rate for the type of claims and the funding that needs to be set aside for the future. And so you're seeing this ever increasing of that percentage that was in the low single digits to now 12%, to next year being 12.5%, and I presume without any changes, that will continue. And so there are ongoing conversations with the county in changing the liability agreements. Those liability agreements are not in the 5-year agreement that you're approving today. Our agreement just references that these other agreements, and it's those other agreements we'll be negotiating with the county at a later time, with the goal of reducing the risk that falls to the cities for actions that may be outside the course and scope of duties of a patrol deputy. So if they performed in a grossly negligent fashion, the belief is that the city shouldn't have to bear the full cost because we don't supervise, train, or direct the work of the deputies, that the county has that authority and control. Therefore, they need to be part and parcel, a partner in taking care of that liability. And so what you have before you is a resolution that grants the authority to the mayor to actually execute the 5-year agreement. It also grants authority to the city manager to be able to provide technical changes that do not affect the number of deputies that we've purchased. And if there's a change to the number of deputies, that is an action that would come before the council to increase or decrease that at any point in time. So that's not a change that I'm granted with as an authority. And so with that, I ask for the motion and second to approve the agreement and the resolution.
Any questions?
No questions. I just know how much work you've put into this whole process, and especially with the Liability Trust Fund, the work you've put in there. So thank you very much for the efforts, and I think our relationship with the Sheriff's Department is a strong one, and it'll continue to be a strong one, and it's in no small part due to those efforts. So I certainly appreciate it, and with that, I'll move approval as outlined.
Second that.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
That motion passes 3-0 with a recusal by Councilmember Viena
And one absence.
and an absence.
All right. We'll move on to other business number 3. Would we get Councilman Viena back in? Thanks, Ryan, for returning.
Are we with
was the
Laverne now? Yeah,
How was the drumstick?
yeah, it was good.
Item number 3, adopt a resolution 2024-42 expressing that City Council's desire to prioritize the preservation of equestrian uses in existing single-family agricultural zoning. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually an exciting one. It's a time that we get to talk about a very large, overarching policy at this level, which could govern actions that occur going into the future. Currently, under Chapter 18.28 of the San Dimas Municipal Code, this section governs the zoning over single-family agriculture and allows the use of equestrian and other animal uses on properties that are greater than 16,000 square feet. We've had, over the course of the last 3 years, 2 projects that have come forth, 2 of them that are about a year apart, that involved the discretionary request to change zoning in the general plan that would have reduced those properties and made those properties that were currently single-family agricultural and allowable for equestrian uses and other animal uses to be smaller parcels that would no longer allow under the code for equestrian or other animal keeping on those properties. There was a request for a study session that occurred after the second project, that second item, which is in 2022, that was intended to have a conversation about establishing what we want to do with equestrian properties in our city and how do we want to proceed going forward. That conversation did not happen until this year. And at this year's conversation, at the last meeting, the direction was for us to come forth with 2 items. One was a resolution expressing the council's policy to preserve and protect the remaining single-family agricultural equestrian-capable properties and to not put into place restrictions that would impair the neighboring properties' abilities to provide equestrian or other animal keeping on those properties. And secondly, to come forth in October of 2024 with a study session discussion of the actual code and potential code changes with some look at practices from other cities with a list of cities that are provided in the staff report so the council can provide direction on whether or not they want to make changes to the code and what those changes should be. And so today before you, this resolution is an expression. It's a draft for your consideration, and it can be amended to express the policy of the council. And I want to just read the sections that are relevant so that those in the public who don't have this in front of them can understand it. Under Section 1, the City Council prioritizes the preservation of equestrian uses within existing single-family agricultural zoning areas and seeks to maintain the ability of property owners to keep horses as per the current code. Section 2, the City Council affirms its commitment to protecting property owners' rights to horsekeeping and will ensure that future developments or subdivisions do not infringe upon these rights. As such, discretionary actions which reduce, limit, or impair horsekeeping on a property or neighboring properties will not be in keeping with the City Council's policy desire reflected in Section 1 of this resolution. Section 3, the City Council expresses its desire to consider limited amendments to the general plan or zoning regulations when a project is of significant value and warrants special consideration. And so that expression would have the following import. We do not stop somebody from making an application to the city for an amendment or a zone change. But when those amendments and zone changes are discretionary, we would advise those individuals of the resolution and expression of the City Council's policy so they know upfront the very strong desire of the council to protect those parcels that allow for equestrian use, which by extension also includes the other animal keeping, so that if that developer or individual decides to continue down the process of that application, they would be met most likely with a recommendation to Planning Commission or the City Council of a denial from staff, and the City Council would have to take the final action to whether to deny it or instead permit the rezone general plan amendment, which would restrict it from equestrian or other animal uses. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you for any discussion.
Questions?
Thank you, Chris, for putting this together, and I think it really does embody, I think, what the council discussed, and I think something that's been characteristic of this community for quite some time, at least as long as I've grown up here in town. The only thing I would ask, if there's councils interested in the amendment, would be the inclusion of language that covers those extension animals. Case in point, I would ask this in honor of Mr. Bobby Mathis's beloved Peaches, who we know was kept for a very long time and was a beloved member of this community and known in that neighborhood. And I do think that while equestrian use is significant and a big one, that people do keep other types of animals, and these property sizes, I think, assist in responsible keeping of those animals.
You know, you might mention who Peaches was.
Oh, Peaches was a pig, and a very, very boastful and
Big.
known pig, pot-bellied pig.
What we could do is revise any reference to equestrian or horse keeping to be equestrian and other animal keeping as allowed under the code.
Very well.
So with,
The code will expressly say that what type of animals these are, or we're going to leave that to the discretion of the owner?
we don't call out peaches, but it does call out the various animals that are allowed and the weight restrictions for some of those animals that may or may not, the animals that are there currently may or may not have been in compliance with. However, when we change the resolution,
What are you trying to say about Peaches?
we'll just make sure that we'll replace equestrian or horses with equestrian and other animals it's implied that it's from that code section, so that it applies to the whole code section. So with that, I would like that motion with the amended resolution to state the following.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A second? We have a first and a second. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, it was a motion by Councilmember Vienna and a second by Councilmember Bratakos.
Yes. Okay.
And Peaches in spirit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0, one absence. Okay? I'm quite sure Bobby will appreciate your sentiment about peaches. Okay,
She'll never be forgotten.
okay, we'll move on to public hearing number, other business, number 4. Approve and authorize the implementation of unmanned aircraft systems. Now we got an Air Force. UAS program authorized an appropriate total of a budget of $36,700 in 2023-24 for purchase of equipment, software, and training licensing programs, and authorize the city manager to approve the UAS policy. Staff?
I'd like to introduce Peter Jacoy from the Public Works Department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Peter?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Peter Jacoy, and I'm the Assistant Engineer at the Department of Public Works. For tonight's report, staff is recommending to approve and authorize implementation of an unmanned aircraft system program, authorize and appropriate a total budget of $36,700 in 2023 through 2024 for purchase of equipment, software, and training licensure program, and authorize city manager to approve city UAS policy. So for the background. So what is an unmanned aircraft system? Unmanned aircraft system, also known as UAS or drones, are aircraft that can fly without a pilot on board. These systems can either be remotely piloted from the ground or fly autonomously using GPS and software. Over the past few years, licensing requirements for UAS have undergone significant changes, and drone technology has advanced rapidly. Consequently, our current drone no longer complies with the latest Federal Aviation Administration regulations and has reached the end of its operational lifespan. To meet our needs, the city has previously contracted a third-party drone for various events, incurring a cost of $1,500 per session. For the analysis, equipment. To maintain drone program for future years, the anticipated cost would include a UAS equipment budget of $29,700, be allocated every 3 years for purchasing new equipment, accessories, and spare parts. This will allow city staff to keep up with the latest technology and industry standards and maintain a reliable and efficient fleet of drones for city operations. Currently, city staff extends the lifespan of city vehicle fleets, and this approach will also be applied to drones. The cost of maintaining the drone fleet over 3 years is likely to be lower. DJI is the leading and largest drone manufacturer globally, supplies 70% of world's consumer drones and 80% of those in the United States. Research was performed into drone equipment and practices in other municipalities such as City of Laverne, which owns a DJI Mavic and a DJI Matrice drone. These drones have demonstrated their effectiveness for patrolling, inspection, and media purpose. This confirms that procuring a DJI drone will support the city operational needs for inspections and photographic and media usage. Licensing and training. To enhance the city staff capabilities in operating UAS, staff requests a budget allocation of $4,000 per year from the general fund for Federal Aviation Administration remote pilot certification. This certification will allow city employees to fly drones safely and legally. The budget will cover the cost of licensing course, training, and licensing exam for 8 employees annually, as well as contingency fund. Training and licensing costs may be higher initially as each department selects and trains its designated pilots. These expenses will eventually be reduced when most selected employees are fully trained and licensed. Management software. Staff is requesting a budget allocation of $3,000 per year from the general fund for a UAS management software that will assist tracking and documenting the lifespan, usage, maintenance, history, and provide live stream access from remote locations of city drones. For the UAS policy. The draft UAS policy establishes guidelines for the UAS, the use of unmanned aircraft system, and for the storage, retrieval, and dissemination of images that captures by the system during city business. The Federal Aviation Administration regulates and sets guidelines for the safe operation of drones in the United States. Commercial drone operators are required to know specific rules and regulations, obtain remote pilot certification, and obtain an FAA tracking number. Staff consulted with other government agencies that have UAS programs to learn from their policies and procedures. Based on these conversations, city staff developed a UAS policy program to guide the administration, safety training, and operation of UAS. The policy also covers the pre- and post-flight actions required for drones. The policy provides foundation for UAS programs and ensures that public safety and privacy are safeguarded. This policy has also been reviewed by California Joint Power Insurance Authority and City Attorney's Office. Now for usage. UAS has become a common tool for many municipalities across the country. They offer a range of benefits for various municipal projects such as real-time tracking of construction projects, emergency situations, and environmental conditions and public events. Assist accessing remote locations such as stormwater outlets and steep hills, capture high-quality video, images, and measurements that can be used for analysis, planning, and reporting, improve efficiency, time, and resource to survey large, difficult areas quicker and simpler than traditional methods, accessing unsafe or inaccessible areas without risking employees or damaging property, monitoring high-risk areas such as wildland interface and very high fire areas for hotspots which may contribute to hazardous conditions, identify water coming from subsurface sources such as pipes, groundwater upwelling by utilizing thermal capabilities. Now for cost savings. In a 6-year period cost, if city adopts the UAS program, this includes equipment, software, and training, would be about $101,400. In a 6-year period cost, if city contracts drone services, would be about $675,000. This includes an estimated yearly usage of 75 flights per year and a cost per contracted drone services of $1,500 per session. By adopting a city-owned drone program, the city can save up to $573,600 over a 6-year period compared to contracting out drone services. Fiscal impact. The UAS program requires an appropriation of $36,700 from the city public safety reimbursable grant. As this is reimbursable from the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, the UAS program budget is proposed as follows. Equipment plus simulator, $29,700. Licensing and training, $4,000. Management and software, $3,000. Adding all with a total budget of $36,700. Now for our recommendation. Staff recommends that City Council consider and approve the following. Authorize and appropriate a total budget of $36,700 from the City Public Safety Reimbursable Grant for Unmanned Aircraft System Program. Approve the purchase of 2 DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise and accessories, 1 DJI Matrice 30T and accessories, 2 Real Flight RC simulators and accessories not to exceed $29,700. Approve a budget for UAS training and licensing not to exceed $4,000 per year. Approve the purchase of subscription to UAS management software not to exceed $3,000 per year. Authorize city manager to approve UAS policy and form approved by city attorney. Now we're open for questions.
Thank you. Chris?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, there's 2 other considerations to talk about. While we refer to the general fund as being the source where this funding would come from, the city received a $200,000 grant through the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments that's a reimbursable basis. So the costs associated with these drones would then be turned around for reimbursement from the COG. The second point is that the city has been flying and or contracting with private entities to fly drones for a variety of reasons, including inspections on hillsides, the events that we would record that a contractor would go to. So we've had those drones in operation. The concern I had was that we never had an actual established policy that was approved by the council and a policy that ensured that we protect the privacy rights of our residents. These drones are not intended to do random surveillance of people's backyards to try to find code violations. It's really intended to enhance the capabilities that our staff currently have to get to locations that we can't readily accessible, such as a hillslide compromise that we found on the backside of a building that the only way to get there was a drone. To be able to look at locations that may introduce more risk. We have not yet gone searching for an individual that's lost a child in Horsethief Canyon Park, but when the day does come, having the capability of an infrared drone to allow for that would be important. Or a more recent one where we had complaints of a tremendous amount of water coming off the hillside. Trying to track down where the heck that water is actually coming from is challenging. At least the thermal imaging that this provides can help assist narrow down the area for where we should be searching. So there's a lot of versatility in this, but that policy was very important to protect and safeguard that privacy right of the public. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Jacoy?
I do have a couple of questions. I think one have already been answered between the presentation and city manager's comments, but just to make sure, it sounds like as it's proposed, these drones will have thermal capabilities, correct?
One, the larger one will have, the other 2 smaller DJI ones will not.
There really is a lot of versatility that gets added to these drones with that thermal ability, so that's fantastic. And then second, I know that it's already included in there because I saw it on there, but just to point it out, it looks like these come with, included in the quote was DJI care for replacement of the drone if it were to be damaged in use.
I'll do research on that and I'll get back, I'll report back.
Is that an additional cost that insures it for that kind of damage?
Yeah, it looks like it was a line item on one of the quotes that was included in the staff report. But yeah, absolutely. These are incredibly expensive pieces of equipment and can easily be damaged if you fly them too close to a tree or something like that. And it often does happen that they get damaged. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when with these things. So if that is not included, I would definitely recommend that it would be, based on my experience of flying these things for work. But based on what I saw, it seemed like it was included in that quote.
I can see that on the quote. We'll just verify that that in fact is, an insurance policy against that from occurring. I know on the DGI, the smaller ones, we're purchasing 2 instead of 1, so that if something does occur to the first one, we do have continuity of service with the second one.
Great, thanks.
Two things. One is, I would just point out, I don't believe that since I happen to be around when we voted to have a drone back in 2017, I think the council understood and provided parameters for the utilization of the drone. I am concerned that this codified policy that's before us is actually more freeing than what the council's direction was back when this was first adopted. There was a lot of concern for privacy and the utilization of drones in the community. And I specifically remember a study session wherein this was discussed, and the council at that time wanted to make sure that the drone was very clearly marked, so it was clear that that was a city drone. And there was concern to ensure that the utilization of these drones was very limited in scope as to what they would be utilized for. The policy before us today, I think, provides a lot more utility for the drones to be incorporated to different functions in the city, and it's very clear that there appears to be a good monetary reason to do that. I wonder if you can tell me where in this policy, because I'm unable to find it, that there's any notification given to a private property owner for whom this drone may be flying over their property absent a warrant.
The only reference to it would be in accordance to applicable law.
So if the staff was to go out there for any other reason, if they had a basis, there is no notification then that would just happen to be given to someone, the way I read this?
Give us just a second, we'll have staff answer that. I think the desire is to make sure that we're not surprising somebody over a private property, right?
Right, yeah. There's people that will take a shotgun out and shoot these things down. And there's other technologies to actually down these things that do not require firearm intervention.
What we can do is you can give us direction to add that more explicitly into the policy.
Thank you, I know.
Do that.
He was doing good, I am going to say he's doing good.
So in section 9.0, it just addresses that the protections for private property does not specifically say that we have to contact the private property before it flies over. But that would be the intent. If
Yeah.
the private property, we wouldn't notify them.
Yeah, I think if, and I know you were there when we went through all these fun discussions way back then. I think it would be prudent for us to incorporate into the policy language that does require that the city notifies a property owner when we are going to fly this over their property. For whatever legal reason the city has to do it, I just think it will further ease people's minds related to this. And that could be as simple as, in my mind, as simple as just putting a door hanger on a door, knocking on a door just to give them notice that you're going to be doing what you're doing, so that the city made an attempt to at least let somebody know. My concern is that there have been repeated documented incidents with drones where they're being flown over private property, and people feel they are invasive and frankly question why. And I can tell you, just where I live at on the north side near the foothills, people do fly their drones. I mean, I too have a drone, and I'm a drone recreational pilot, and with my DJI drone. But I will tell you, it's not uncommon for people to fly those drones, and then you have people asking, hey, is there any reason why said drone was hovering over, my house, or whatever the case may be, and you see that on Nextdoor. So if the city's going to engage in it, And I think we have, you've done a really good job on outlining what the need is for the organization. I just would ask that we let our residents know when we're going to do it.
So if we may, when we approve this, also approve it with direction to staff to modify the policy to, one, clearly mark the drone as a city drone, and we may even put on the website the coloring scheme so people can see that in fact it's ours, and two, find an effective mechanism to notify private property owners when allowable to ensure that it's not a surprise that it shows up. And I can imagine, we'll work with Anissa, our PIO, emergency operations person, because we do also have our emergency notification system that we can geographically identify an area and push out a phone message that says, hey, this is the operation that we're currently performing in your area, so that you don't have to show up at a doorstep. You can just hit a number of houses, even if they're not being flown over, just so they're aware when they see it.
Yeah, I imagine those utilizations to me are probably less than, I mean, unless you're doing very high level, but even at that point, I don't know how intrusive that is, but I mean, if you're looking at a specific property for some reason, or a number of homes perhaps, to look at, drainage or brush clearance or whatever you're doing, I mean, it would just be helpful if somebody just went, and I know it's going to take a little bit more staff time to do that, but I think in the end, the residents will appreciate that more and be more aware.
I think that's prudent. I think the goal was we would be flying over more public right-of-way, open space, but I can see the eventuality. I mean, and when we're looking at a specific house, we're dealing with the property owner, and we're engaging with them like, hey, there's a compromise. We're going to be needing to look on the hillside around your house. Are you okay with that? Then we fly the drone. But I think if there's an easier way that staff can notify without necessarily having to go door to door and provide the notifications, or if we can go to door, I love the idea of a flyer that you can just leave on the front so that it's there whether they're there or not.
Yeah.
So we'll integrate that into the policy.
I do have one more question, and it's kind of getting at the same point that Councilmember Viena was getting at, and that's, it touches on it a little bit in the policy about data and flight activity reporting, but I'm curious how long our retention period on flight logs would be, just in the eventuality that somebody were to file a complaint about our drone hovering over their house for too long, and, if we could provide them a GPS log of, our drone transited over the top of your neighborhood, it wasn't hovering over your house, type of thing.
Do we have a time period, though? Is it a year? We don't have it listed, but we'll look into it. We'll look for an appropriate retention period for the records. So we have the drone management software purposely to be able to retain that information as well as video information that's coming from the drone.
Okay, great. I think that would be fantastic to outline as well.
What if, I believe the FAA owns controls the airspace, and what legality do we have entering in their airspace? And what's the difference between a drone hovering and a helicopter hovering?
I'll let Peter, who's certified, speak to it, but there are some special restrictions in our area because we're close to Brackett.
So in some instances, we're pretty close to Brackett airspace, so we would have to contact our air tower controller and let them know that we're going to be flying the drone.
Each and every time?
Not every time, only in some locations, but per the Part 107 license, we can only fly up to 400 feet in some locations. That's our maximum height. And when we get closer to Brackett, that height gets slower.
Thank you. I think, quite sure it's probably a felony to shoot a drone down. So I don't know. Quite sure it is. I just want to make a couple of comments, Mr. Chikoy. First off, thank you very much for a very thought-out report. I understand you actually qualified to fly this thing, so at least I feel better that we have something, someone that's going to help the rest of our people learn. Right at the beginning, when I kind of said I really didn't mean it, that we have our own Air Force. What I meant really truly is that we have an opportunity to utilize a tool that we identified years ago, like Councilman Viena said, but on a very limited scale. Now we're starting to move a little bit different. The drone we purchased years ago did not cost us this type of money, and they weren't anywhere near like this. But we had one guy who took it over, he flew. We found out what usefulness it could be, and I see the uses of it. And I want to thank you very much for taking this task on yourself to get us up to speed, and really look forward to hearing different things that are happening if, in fact, this does pass tonight. But thank you, the Public Works Department, thank the city manager and stuff. I believe that him, as well as the sheriff's captain, have been out in the field, went off to Beverly Hills, looked to see what process they have and how they're utilizing it. And I will mention the fact that not only flock cameras have come to their place in our law enforcement world, but this drone not only can be utilized for law enforcement, but it now is, we find out that, Edison uses it all over the state to look at wiring and stuff like that, and there is a place for it. But thank you very much. Thank your boss for allowing you to, research this, and I look forward to hearing success stories.
So I'll, one thing on this, to Councilmember Weber's point, data retention, I think, is something, it's not defined in the policy at this point other than applicable law. I'd be curious what that is. Candidly, there's other areas where there's highlights left in the draft, insert contact information, number of business days is still left blank. So I am inclined to support passing everything except the policy, so that the policy can be refined. I'd be curious to see what the data retention laws and applicability is, and if we should adopt a policy that may be more conservative than that. I think minimally 2 years. 2 years gives somebody to file a PRA. It's consistent with our email retention policy. Or if there's something more that you think is appropriate, then perhaps that's what we should do there. And then also understand applicable law. But I also think there's a cost associated with data retention, and that's a real cost. So I would ask that that cost comes back with the policy as it relates to data retention. That assumes that there's interest from council regarding that. But I do think, the policy to me is the bigger issue, which is kind of our bailiwick up here, at least as it relates to this, because this particular issue is sensitive. And to be honest with you, this is going to be more permissible than the council's opinion on this in the past. So that's my thought.
When you talk about data retention, what type of data is there to be retained for these filming, like body-worn cameras and stuff?
I'm going to go through all the data that the management platform has.
Do you and Brad go to the same barber? I just wanted to ask. Same tailor too, huh? All right.
Maybe.
Thanks.
So for media, we're probably going to capture mostly street improvement projects, before and after pictures, hills. I would say the pictures are not going to be as different as looking at a Google Maps photo, which is widely available to the public. These do have GPS coordinate data in the platform, yes.
So I guess the question, to the mayor's point, right? Flight data, I imagine you're going to capture, video, photographs, and flight data would include altitude, coordinates, direction of travel, and just in my experience, if it's similar product to what I have from DJI, it's also going to be able to be referenced against a map, so you could actually see the flight path of travel, which would help us address any claims that may come forward, to Councilmember Weber's concern.
So let us take a look at the data that's in the platform and come up with better retention language for that. Also, a way, it would be great if a platform also allows us to retain the notification data that when we make a notification. So we pre-plan a flight, we know what notifications are going out, just document that so it's all in one spot. So what we'll do, so that's great. If you could approve the package with, actually, it's okay if you don't approve the whole package, we just wait. If you want to approve the policy, or you can approve everything there and we'll purchase and get reimbursed for the purchase of the drone, and then bring the policy back, hopefully at the next meeting, so that all the council members are here to be able to discuss it.
Yeah, I don't,
So would this just be a continuance then?
well, I don't think, personally, I don't have a problem approving items 1 through 4, which would be letting them purchase, get their grant going and all that. I think the policy we can hash out at the next meeting.
I just have a
that's
quick
fine with that.
question. In terms of like data retention, notifying residents, have we spoken to any of our surrounding cities that maybe have a more strict policy and found out what issues they may have had? If we don't have to reinvent a wheel, that would be nice.
Do we know if any other cities in our local area are using drones to this extent?
That means you have the answer.
Yes, City of Laverne and Fullerton.
City of Ver-
Laverne and
who?
Fullerton. City of Fullerton.
Thank you.
I'd be interested in knowing what they've done in terms of the data retention and notifying residents. But I am also okay with approving the purchase of the equipment.
Any further questions? Have a motion?
I'll move that we approve items number 1 through 4 as recommended by staff pertaining to this item.
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0.
And then I would move that staff brings back item number 5 pertaining to the policy at the next city council meeting.
Second that.
Is that going to be enough time for you? 2 weeks?
We could, I think the section we're talking about are dramatic, but we can bring those forward, so you at least give us some more direction. If it's not to your liking, we can just continue that and bring it back again.
To October?
If it's not, since you're asking a lot of questions, if it doesn't come back the next meeting, then we should bring it back in October.
I think we should bring it back at the next meeting to make sure that we're either heading in the right direction or got it right, and if not, you give us more guidance, and then we'll bring it back after that.
All right? So you have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Okay. Mr. Jacoy? Thank you. Great deliveries. First time we've seen you, up in front of us like this, and it's a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Okay, and as we spoke in the beginning, the other business discussion concerning the Golden State Water thing is continued till 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks for water?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, we'll move on to oral communications. Members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes and as may be determined by the chair. Any speakers wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to city reports. City manager,
No report tonight, sir.
city attorney,
I have no reports, Mayor.
members of the city council, members who attended at the expense of the local agency. Seeing none, then we'll move to city council requests for future items, comments, and updates. Mr. Vienna.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. One is congratulations to all the students that are graduating from our high schools and to everyone else that is out for summer. That means more people on the road and in the streets. So please make sure members of the community were driving responsibly, slowing down, watching for youth, and also please ensure that we're all being very neighborly and supportive while our youth are out enjoying summer break. I wanted to thank the council regarding my request. I'm very grateful for that and appreciate the opportunity that I'll be going on here in the near future. And the last thing is I wanted to point out, I really do appreciate the city and the council taking the position they did as it relates to the equestrian properties. I think it's important with Senate Bill 9 and some of the other housing laws that have gone into effect that, you know, we really do what we can to preserve the character and quaintness of this community as much as we can for as long as we can. So with that said, I do thank each and every one of you for that. I thank staff for all your time on it. And in the interest of full transparency and disclosure, you know, I talked about the inclusion of Peaches, the pig, in honoring her memory as it related to the amendment earlier. And I would just like to add that council had pulled pork for dinner, and I abstained from pulled pork, as my colleague pointed out. And I will not be eating any pulled pork this evening afterwards.
There's chicken too.
I'll look for the chicken. Thank you. But we have chickens actually in Chicken Hollow. But anyways, thank you so much, and have a good night.
Mr. Weber?
First things first, I just want to apologize to everybody for my lack of formality in my attire tonight. I rushed straight from work through rush hour traffic and made it here just in the next time for the study session. So my apologies. Normally I'm at least a little more formal with a shirt, tie maybe, but tonight was a kind of an exception, so I apologize. And then I'd like to recognize that this Sunday, June 9th, was the 29th anniversary of Officer Louis Pompey with the Glendora Police Department, who was killed at our Villa Verde Vons, trying to stop a violent armed robbery that was occurring there back in 1995. As I've discussed before, it's very near and dear to my heart because I not only worked for Glendora Police Department as an officer there for many years, but grew up in the organization and was very close during the time of that incident and got to see that kind of firsthand as it unfolded. And I know how much it means to not only the members of the department that still remember that happening, but also to the residents that were around in San Dimas around that time. It is important to continue to remember him because that was truly a tragic day for both of our really close-knit communities. So Sunday morning, it was a new addition to the ways that we remember his and honor his memory. They added a 4.6-mile run from the Villa Verde Vons shopping center all the way through Covina and Glendora to the Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park, and I got to partake in that with the members of the Glendora Police Department that were there making that run. That was a fantastic addition, I think, and look forward to doing it year after year. And then later on in the evening, I went back to the park in San Dimas there for the annual gathering that they have, and I was very pleased and thankful that the rest of my council colleagues were there as well to remember him. And then I'm also always pleased every year by the showing of support from our deputies at San Dimas Station. I know Captain Ash was there, and he brought probably 5 or 6 other deputies with him, and that's always very much appreciated, not only by me and the council, but by the members of the Glendora Police Department as well. It means a lot to them, so thank you. That is it.
Councilwoman Protakis.
That's me. I also wanted to congratulate our recent graduates from San Dimas High School and Chaparral High School. If any of you are watching, you probably aren't, but I want to say that I'm very excited for what you all are going to accomplish, and I look forward to seeing everything that you do. Also, June is Pride Month. This is a time to celebrate love, inclusion, diversity, and equality. And last but not least, happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. We appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. I too attended the Louis Pompey service. I did not run.
There's always next year, Mr. Mayor.
I did not run, but I heard a lot of comments about it. I don't know why you were last, but that's neither here nor there.
They were sorely mistaken, I'm sorry. They must have had some recollection issues with that one.
Each year, this community, actually, we host this, even though Louis was from the city of Glendora. They come to the park up in Villa Verde, and I want to thank the city for doing what they do, get the park cleaned up and looks really good. But what's even nice, it always looks good, and it's very much appreciated. And they received a new flag, and I know that from speaking to the mayor and the other folks from the city of Glendora, they appreciate it. The police department's there in full force. If you were around 29 years ago, you'll remember that it was just a very, very sad situation. And I do want to stop, and I know that Eric was one of the people that helped put that park together, along with Mr. Enderly and several other community members who were very, very active. And that group of folks will never let this Louis' memory, die. He will be here as a part of this community forever. So it means a lot to go out there and see our people sitting there having the respect, and the other council people from the other city looking at us and say, you know what, thank you guys. Thank you for remembering. And there were so many, we've been having a sensational amount of ribbon cutting, so I want to commend the Chamber of Commerce, because they're out knocking on people's doors. We're getting new members, and I don't think there's a week gone by that there hasn't been a ribbon cutting or two. So my hat's off to the Chamber Board, as well as your CEO, Sylvia. Thanks for doing because this is what's making us a community that's thriving. And I don't know, I didn't hear anybody tonight from Parks and Rec saying that we're getting ready to start music in the park this next week. Is that right?
You're right. You're correct, Mayor.
Music in the park, and that means lots and lots of people in our park. So maybe we'll continue to remember to cut the lawn on Wednesday mornings. I hear that a lot from people. And as we all know, Mike, the ice cream man, shows up every Wednesday, and his line is much longer than most of our lines. So, I think that as a city, we're ready to go into the summer, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty warm one. So let's all remember to be safe and make sure we hydrate and do the things we need to do. This time, the council will go into a closed session to discuss 2 cases of conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation on one case, with one case being initiated of litigation, and the second being significant exposure to litigation. Any report will occur after the closed session.
Mayor, I do need to make, this time I do need to make a statement pursuant to the Brown Act regarding item number 2 on the closed session. That is, like you said, a significant exposure to litigation, and that is pertaining to potential liability regarding remediation of the BKK landfill in West Covina.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Good night. See you in 2 weeks.